Hello, and welcome to another episode of ARFCOM News, your twice-weekly dose of the finest 2A propaganda, or something like that. Today, we're doing another one of those wacky semi-live things to discuss the life after the big bloated bill being passed and some other fun news stories. And today I have my cohorts, Josh and Bobby, wherever they may be on the screen, joining in. Andrew is currently undergoing some refitting and maintenance so he can be optimized for 2A propaganda efficiency or something like that. I didn't read the whole thing. So unless you guys have been living under a rock or you're not completely consumed by the amount of news and social media, you absolutely drink from the fire hose. That could have been suggestive. Whoa. So we're going to be talking a little bit about life after the big bloated bill getting passed, after the registration scheme totally staying intact, but now you're paying a couple $100 less, which, let's be real, I'm not made of money. I don't know about you guys, but right. I'm kind of happy that the tax standpoint away, but it's a very bittersweet, melancholy happiness as the Senate proletariat or proletarian, whatever that is. Yeah. What was your joke earlier, Bobby? Push the talks thing.
Yes, the parliamentarian.
Yeah, I didn't know we were in England.
I didn't know we were in England. I think it was a compromise. It for as little resistance as the parliamentarian got on deciding to take out what we really wanted out of the short act and HPA, it kind of felt like it was pre-done. There were steps that could have been taken from certain politicians, not naming names. That
J.D. Vance and that Thune guy we were talking about last time.
Right. Yep. That could have stepped in and done something differently, right? Or said, no, we're going to ignore this person, overrule them, fire them, something. Apparently that person's a lot more powerful than they make him out to be, or surprise, surprise, politicians weren't that interested in maintaining our constitutional rights.
Follow the money.
No kidding. But as of now, and I can go switch to this article here, GOA's got a pretty good article on this. We did end up with just spending less money on tax stamps, which is cool, I guess.
Well, spending more money as a country is spending less money on tax stamps. Yes.
Yeah. So the specifically here, the one big beautiful bill signed by President Donald Trump on the 4th of July, this is as of July 3rd, takes the NFA tax stamp from $200 down to $0 on both short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and AOWs, as well as suppressors. This is going against the 1930s Supreme Court case, where it is Stravinsky? Stravinsky? It's not Russian. Stravinsky versus U.S., where basically the king wanted their money. He didn't want to pay it, but the Supreme Court said you had to. It's interesting. I think the Supreme Court case back then likely couldn't have possibly foreseen what we'd run into today, right, with what we got today. But it's been the situation that we've been stuck with now for, 80 years more? Almost 100 years? It feels
too long.
Yeah, too long.
And that's been their defense, hasn't it? Having that tax in place is a way for them to continue to have that registry. And so with this passing, if that does go to $0, then there potentially are some grounds to get the NFA completely wiped out, because now there's no money that's exchanging hands here. So why do we need to keep track of people who aren't paying anything? That becomes a illegal registry. No?
So I guess from that NRA ILA article, and we'll link that, of course, in the doobly-doo down below, like always, but they were stating that the argument to have the tax was so that they could prove the item got recorded in the registry or something to that effect. And again, without the tax, the entire house of cards they've built around the NFA, I guess, falls apart. I'm really curious. So that kind of segues into why we're talking about this. So a whole bunch of companies, GOA, FPC, SAF, the NRA ILA, American Suppressor Association, and then a bunch of manufacturers have all basically got together and filed what GOA calls the one big beautiful lawsuit. Those guys are studs. If they're filing this big lawsuit and kind of coming at them for the only leg they've had to stand on being the tax. I'm really excited to see what happens with this.
So I have a question, because there's been a concern about, okay, if they can reduce the tax to zero, then what's to stop them, 40 years down the road, there's a switch of hands in Congress, from them, making it $200 or $400 or even on par with inflation, to where it gets to be like upwards of closer to $5,000 for a tax stamp. If that lawsuit is successful in shutting down the NFA, does that close any avenue to actually for them to try to reverse that and re-implement the tax?
Ryan, where will it end?
But hey, it would be impossible for us to produce quality 2A propaganda and eat without sponsors. So let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by Springfield Armory.
Imagine a 9mm carbine with roller delay action just like Kraut Space Magic. Now imagine it didn't have garbage ergonomics. The brand new Kuna from Springfield Armory gives you that roller delayed, smooth recoil you're looking for with reversible, non-reciprocating charging handle and MB absolutely everything.
And by 1776 Insurance. Most homeowners' policies only cover up to $2,500 for firearms. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got more than that in just optics. 1776 gives you comprehensive coverage against breakage, theft, fire, and burglary for all of your guns, and you don't have to give them your serial numbers.
Brought to you by Tactical Cat.
MC Tiny Cat.
Yeah. So this also, in other interesting, this is more international than it is here, news, one of the very few countries in the world that has decided to go and say, hey, people deserve gun rights was Argentina, who's having a history now of being kind of semi-mega based. It's another half measure, so before people of Argentina get super excited, it is better than what they got, but not something like constitutional carry that we have in a couple states. Things of that nature. You do have them overthrowing a 3-decade ban on citizens being able to own semi-automatic weapons with detachable magazines. So shout out to them. President Javier has gone.
Javier Milei.
Yeah, Milei. He has.
I think so.
And they've referred it to as liberalized gun ownership, which I think is a really interesting term for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the classical definition. This is one of Andrew's favorite things to actually argue about, right?
Yeah, but I do think that turning the age of ownership, like the minimum age of ownership from 21 to 18, they, very similar to us, have, if you're 18 years old, you're treated like an adult legally. Let's treat you like an adult forever on every avenue. So I do think that that is something that we are behind on in a lot of states, and there's no real federal push for that. And then the other thing on it was that you could apply for it. They're supposed to be setting up like a faster application process to get a license, because it's still going to require some level of licensure. However, my issue with this, and they bring it up in this article specifically, there is less than 1 million of Argentina's 45 million citizens that have a gun license, and over 2/3 of those licenses are already expired. Now, of that 45 million, how many are of age? How many are actually would pass a background check, right? You're going to have people that are going to be considered prohibited persons within that clause. I get it. I'm with the group that's going to say, hey, it's my right. And there should be no prohibited persons, especially if they're free, right? But I do think that it feels like another half measure, or it feels like it's supposed to be a political win, not an actual one, in the same way that we were kind of half given better access to NFA items. They're getting this access to so-called assault weapons, but they're still having to do it through a licensing process. Just for ownership. It's not like I'm doing the background check to get the gun. I'm doing the background check to do probably another background check to get said gun.
Yeah, and also like depending on what that, even if it may not be like a codified law that or is like a right for them that's enshrined, it could simply be taken away. Or if they wanted to be a little less upfront about it, they could just make some, crazy requirement in the testing, do a double backflip, get AA zones, Yeah.
And part of that too, is you can see this in New York and California, where they were in may issue states for licenses specifically for carry in those areas, is like, I can make it to where I give it to who I want to and not who I don't.
And primarily in those regions, it's, hey, who gave me the biggest, or who's giving me money for my campaign?
Right. Anything else we want to cover in that?
Oh, not at all. I think it's a good segue. Earlier, you had mentioned about them increasing the age of gun ownership. And that's basically our next story. It's on about a brief that was filed by FBC and GOA, those Chads, we love them. So both the organizations filed their opening briefs on the 30th for the case that was originally filed in 2019. Just give you an idea about the speed of bureaucracy there. But it's with the Ninth Circuit Court relating to the Bonta case, which we've covered previously, which is about Americans under 21 that are basically being stripped of their 2A rights because California likes to do that in general, I guess. If we're going to be honest, that's pretty much the theme there. But they did file this opening brief, and I'll throw up a little screenshot of it. But essentially, it seems like that is actually going to be gaining some momentum, and hopefully they will be able to dismantle that, use that precedent to tear apart some of California's other laws.
And it really, specifically when it comes to gun rights, I do think it's really gross that you have. I understand that there's some argument for states' rights versus, there's the nationalists out there that want to have some sort of uniformity. And it's a double-edged sword on both sides of the fence. Do I want the semi-balkanization of America where people that have a certain political affiliation can go move and experience what they want? Or if you want to be in a more subsidized state where I believe that my taxpayer dollars should pay for everything, right? Then you should have the right in America to have that and live in those circumstances. However, when you talk about the restriction of rights, and there's a bunch of different angles to look at this from, but we're looking at it obviously from a firearm standpoint. How much am I going to allow a state to restrict something? And this is always, whether it's from the federal to the state or the state to the local, technically, the smaller that government gets, the less it should have power to restrict you. Really, the federal government should be setting a precedence on what you can and cannot do, and then you live within those rules. The fact that you're in California where they're restricting something that's normally legal everywhere else, kind of like what Bobby said earlier, I can go fight a foreign war, but God forbid, I go and try to go own a gun or carry a gun for my personal defense. You're trusting me with everything else.
I'm cool with raising the age of conscription to 21.
Sure.
And making it so that everybody can carry guns until 21.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But then you also got to make sure that anyone under the age of 21 is treated as a minor in the eyes of the law, right? Like
then we can roll the Jerry Nadler clip of, oh no, we need our young men to die.
Right. But yeah, I at least be consistent, because it makes for this very weird gray area where you're held accountable for adult actions, but you're not allowed and afforded all of the rights given to you.
It's that Starship Troopers quote when he's talking about, if you vote, you're exercising political authority and you're using force.
Right. And
force is a supreme... I'll just roll the clip.
Force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
I'm butchering it. Sorry, guys.
I love it. No, it's hilarious. Yes.
And now for your moment of Zen.
I don't have anything funny to say for this video, but apparently if you just say, for the boys, all these guys will just come in and like your video and watch it and share it.
Do you like pews and pew-related things? Would you like to help us keep delivering you pure and cut American pew propaganda at the low price of $200? Wait, what? Who wrote that in there? We literally couldn't pay the bills without our sponsors. So do yourself a solid. Get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. And until next time, Andrew loves you, and I still think you're okay.